Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. Most of you know that the supermarket shopping bags are my biggest seller. To date, I've made about 3,500 of them so far. I have an order that needs to be shipped out today just for one bag, but I didn't have any fabric left. The customer has been kind enough to let me make her a bag in a different colour. We're using upholstery fabric today. I have just enough fabric to make 3 bags, and I'm going to show you how to make just one bag today. So previously I've done a batch sewing tutorial where I've shown you how I make these bags in bulk, but today, just to make this a separate video, we're doing one only. It's 11:30 in the morning. I've got to make the post by 5 o'clock this afternoon. It's going to Queensland. So hang around and I'll show you how I make these bags up. They're extremely quick to make. They're not lined. They're just a supermarket shopping bag, which is fantastic because for the past few years we've not been allowed to have single-use plastic bags in Australia. And I believe other countries are doing the same thing now too. Let's make this bag quickly together. There are only 2 things we need: one piece of fabric, the full length, and one piece of webbing or strapping, which is what we're going to use for our handles. Nothing else is required, except your machine, of course. All right, as I said, there's only 2 things we need. One piece of fabric, and you want a non-directional fabric for this. And I'm also using upholstery fabric. Upholstery fabric is a really nice fabric to sew with and very, very sturdy, and they last you for years and years. They're also machine washable. This is 18 inches wide by 36 inches in length. So we just want one piece of that. Then we also have a piece of webbing or strapping that is 45 inches in length by 1 inch wide. I'm using a polypropylene webbing here. It's very sturdy. If you don't have access to this, you can make some handles. Just cut some 4-inch strips by 45 inches, fold them in half twice and sew them together, and you've got some handles. Fold this in half and we'll cut that. We now have 2 handle pieces. The webbing has a tendency to fray. We are going to be overlocking this, so it will lock in the frayed edges. You can also melt the edges with a lighter. So that won't fray now. If you're doing a whole batch of these, do them outside where you've got some air circulation because you don't want to inhale these fumes. Okay, we'll take our fabric, open it out lengthwise. We'll fold that in half and then bring that fold to the raw edges. And where that fold is here, we just want to make a little mark in the fabric, and we'll do the same on the other side. So it's just folded in half and then folded in half again. And we have a mark on our fabric here. This is the position of our handles. So it's very simple so far. Take one of your handles and position that directly over the center of that mark. Make sure your straps are even all the way, so you don't want to have any twist in there. Turn it around and bring the other side up, and we'll line up the other handle on this side. So you can line up the raw edges of the top of your bag here and just make sure that the handles are in line with each other. Now what we need to do is go to our machine. If you have an overlocker or a serger, go and overlock this edge where the handles are and secure that in place. Once you've done that, you'll bring the right sides together and you'll overlock or serge all the way down this side and this side here. Now, if you don't have an overlocker or a serger, it doesn't matter. You can zigzag your bag, or if you know how to do the French seam technique, you can do French seams on this to hide your seams. So zigzag with your sewing machine will work just as well. Okay, with just the single layer of fabric, we want to bring that straight under our overlocker right next to the cutting blade, and then start sewing all the way to the end, and that will secure these handles in place. And we'll repeat that for the other end as well. Now that you've overlocked the top edge of your bag, we need to do the side, but we're going to bring the sides together. So we've got the top of our bag on the back and the top at the front. Bring those edges together on the side. You don't need to trim off these loose threads because they're going to be hidden away later, and they'll also be cut off when we start sewing here. Line up the top edge of your fabric with the top edge of the other side. Bring these right under the presser foot until you get to the needle. That will stop the fabric from shifting forward as you start sewing. Line up the side edges as you go. I do like to leave a bit of a tail, and I'll show you what I do with that later. And now we can do the other side. I've taken a little nick out of this one here because I can still see the holes from the selvage, so I want to get rid of all of that. So I will just trim off a little bit of extra fabric on the side there so that there are no selvages visible on the outside. We have now finished what we need to do with the overlocker, and the rest is done on the sewing machine. Okay, the overlocking has been done on both side edges and along the top. A handle is in place. We're now going to box our corners. We're doing a 3-inch box corner for this bag, and this is the stitching line right along here. So that's my stitching line right along there. And we're going to take our 3-inch measurement from that stitching line. So I've marked a line along here, and then from the folded edge at the bottom we will also mark 3 inches. And we'll do that on all sides. Okay, so I've marked a 3-inch square on both corners and both sides of the bag. Usually when I'm making these up in bulk, I don't bother marking it at all. I take it straight to the machine, and I have a ribbon taped to my machine set at the 3 inches, and I can just fold everything out and do them quickly like that. So for the purpose of this video, I'm showing you how to mark your box corners. Then you'll open out the fabric, just stick your arm inside, open out the fabric, and take this corner here and pinch that together. Find the other corner and pinch that together as well. And you want that line to be nice and straight going across. This seam here, it doesn't matter whether you have it going to your left or to your right, but you want it to go the same way on both sides of your bag. And I'll explain that to you shortly. So I'm going to take this seam and push it to my right. I'll pin that in place. And when we go to the machine, we'll be sewing from this corner to that. I'll back stitch here, I'll triple stitch here, and I'll back stitch there as well. And then I'll go over the whole thing once again. We'll repeat that for the other side. You just open it out, pinch the corners, fold that seam to my right, and I can sew this together now. Before I do that, I'm going to go to the top end and fold my hem over. So here we're going to have a 1-inch fold over. So you can see there, the handle is folded over with the edge of the fabric, but then it's brought back up again and it's stitched on from the inside of the bag. When we take this to the machine, we're going to start sewing at the side seam. We'll come all the way around and sew right along the very edge of the overlocked stitches here. When you get to your handle, go forward, back and forward again, and then keep on going. When you're folding the side seam down, remember the other end here is facing toward my right, so I want to follow that along at the top edge as well. And this bit of overlocked thread is just going to sit underneath that seam. That will fold down, and then I'll fold over my 1-inch hem allowance here. Those overlocking threads will sit underneath the fold, and I haven't had to waste my time cutting anything off. And on the other side, we'll do the same thing. You want to follow the direction of that hem seam line, fold it over, tuck in your little overlocked threads, and then you can finish pinning everything together and we can sew it. Okay, with everything clipped together at the top, the triangles at the bottom are pinned together. We can take this to the machine now and do all of that together. First of all, we will do these box corners, and I won't be cutting any of these off either. For years I've been making them this way and leaving the ears on. It adds a little bit more stability to the fabric. It's never going to come undone, keeps it neat, and you don't have any extra stitching to do with having to tidy up your raw edges. So leave your ears on when you've boxed your corners. Then when you've done both corners, turn the bag the right way out, and it'll be easier for you to sew the round at the top when you've got the bag the right way around. Okay, we're going to back stitch at the beginning and the end. I also triple stitch over the area where the seam is because there's so much bulk. And I usually, when I'm working with upholstery fabric, I usually double stitch these seams. Now remember that little tail that we had from the overlocked threads earlier? With my seam here facing toward me, all I'm going to do is take that tail, tuck that in underneath the seam, and do a few stitches at the bottom there. That will tuck the thread in underneath, and I can trim off the excess. That way I don't have to worry about tying my threads. It just saves a little bit of time. And we do the same for the other one. Just bring the thread underneath. I'm going to start sewing at the side seam. I'll do a back stitch at the beginning, and I'm going to sew all the way around the entire bottom edge of the fold over here. When I get to the handles, I'll triple stitch over the handles at the bottom edge and then continue on. I'm not going to be doing any of those cross sections on this bag. Now that I've come back to where I started, you can see where the fabric is folded here and the seam that I've got there. I'm going to stitch up to that, and instead of back stitching here, I'll raise my presser foot, turn my work around, and I'll stitch up that line, come up to within 1/4 of an inch of the top edge, raise my foot again, turn back around, and then I'll top stitch that entire round again. It saves having to back stitch and cut off threads and have anything untidy happening there. Saves a lot of time too. And over the handle I'll triple stitch at the top as well. And that's the reason why I don't do the crosses, because I'm triple stitching at the bottom and at the top edge. You've got 6 rows of stitching plus the overlocking. The handle's never going to come off. And you can backstitch when you get to the end. When your bag is finished, if you plan on sewing to sell, pop a label on the front. I've always had my labels right on the very top edge of the band here, centre it in between the handles, and everyone will love them. My labels say handmade in Nagambie, which is the town I live in. Stitch This is the name of my shop, and then it's got my website on there as well. So that way, if any potential customers see the bag, they know where to order the bags. There's a link in the description for both types of labels that I use. Okay, there we have a completely finished bag. I've put my label on the front there, and this is now ready to post out. I've also finished the other two as well. Well, I made it. It's only just gone 1 o'clock. I finished the 3 bags and I'm ready to now send one of these out to Queensland. I'm even going to have enough time for my lunch, a nana nap, and to package both my orders. This is another one that's going today, the tapestry bag. That'll be going to, I think that's going to New South Wales. For the past few years, these bags have been my biggest seller. I've literally made thousands of these bags. If you'd like to see my production line sewing or my batch sewing of these bags, I'll pop a link down below so that you can see how I do. I think in that video I'm doing about 50 bags, but you can see the processes that I go through to make all of these bags and save time. You'll love the way I cut up multiples of handles. So I'll pop that link in the video below. These bags can be made on a regular domestic sewing machine. Nearly all of my projects can. And the first 2,500 that I made of these were all done on a very old clunky Janome sewing machine. So even though I'm using industrial machines, for me it's about speed. It's what I do all day, every day, whether I'm at home or at work. But for years I made these bags just on a regular sewing machine. I usually sell my plain bags for $15 each and the ones with a pattern on them for $20 each. I'm asked often whether or not you can use regular quilting fabric for these bags. You certainly can. You can use any woven fabric at all. I started these with upholstery fabric because I had nearly 6 tonnes of fabric given to me several years ago, and I needed something to do with them that would use up a lot of fabric quickly. So that's how these upholstery bags came about. You can use denim, duck, drill, any sturdy fabric, and you can most definitely use your quilting cottons as well. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm off for some lunch, a nap, and in the post office, and I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.